Good morning, everyone. It's me, Michael. This is my Saturday soundtrack, and you're listening to Sheffield Hospital Radio. Like previous weeks, I've got another fantastic guest on this week. She's one of the senior sisters on A&E. She's been on shift on nights for this week, but come in today. It's Amanda. Hi, Amanda.
Good morning, Michael.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And I've got that right. You're a senior sister within A&E at the Northern General Hospital.
I am. I'm part of a fabulous team in A&E.
And I understand they're listening in today.
They are. Some will be. Some will be on shift, but yeah, they're listening in.
And anyone particularly you want to give a shout out to in that team?
All of them. They all do a fabulous job.
Fantastic. Well, we'll hear more about those, them coming up. But I think this is a song that they've asked to play that probably absolutely exemplifies the fantastic work that our A&E team do under pressure, to give a bit of a thing. But it's David Bowie and Queen, Under Pressure. We'll hear more from you in a bit, if that's all right, Amanda.
Yes, thank you.
See you shortly. Under Pressure there, a song from Amanda, who we've got, one of the senior sisters in A&E. A big shout out to all the fantastic staff working across our A&E department. So Amanda, tell us a bit about A&E then. So we're fortunate we've got two A&Es in the city. Tell us a bit about the difference between the one you work in and the children's.
So the one I work in is for adults 16 and over. We don't see any children whatsoever. We have minor injuries. We've got GP collaborative as well. So if you come to A&E, we don't necessarily keep you within the main department. We can redirect you to one of the other services.
Fantastic. And so how many patients would you see typically in a 24-hour period or each day?
350,
Wow.
380 in a 24-hour period.
That's amazing. And so what kind of numbers of staff do you have on each day to deal with that number of patients?
We have a minimum of 18 staff nurses
Right.
on each shift.
And then the other kind of professions that are in the department, who's in your team across A&E, who you're working with?
So we have staff nurses, we have student nurses, we have support workers, we've got porters, reception staff, we've got colleagues from Yorkshire Ambulance Service. So, yeah, we've got, and lots of management. So we've got a wide scope of people in the department.
So that must be a really busy department then. So give us a feel for what's a typical shift. Is there such a thing as a typical shift for you in A&E?
There is no such thing as a typical shift. Every shift is completely different. We have traumas coming in, just injuries out in the community, people with pneumonia, different ailments that come through the door, from your walking wounded to your severely unwell.
Gosh. And so how that must be incredible, that range of, I presume you are going on a shift each time, not quite knowing what's going to happen for the next 8, 10, 12 hours.
You don't know whatsoever. You can walk onto the department and it look all nice and calm, and within 10 minutes, it can have completely turned into being the really busiest of shifts.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm really keen to hear about how do you respond to that? How do you provide amazing care? Because I presume patients come into A&E are potentially there in some of the worst moments of their life, something they didn't plan for that day. So some of the care and compassion that you and colleagues show must be absolutely fantastic. So you join me, it's Michael, it's my Saturday soundtrack, and I've got Amanda with me, one of the senior sisters on A&E. So Amanda, tell me, a senior sister role, what does that involve, particularly in A&E?
The senior sister role is leading each shift, and every shift is different. So we expect the unexpected.
Yep.
We remain calm under pressure. We're making sure that in every area of the department there is good skill mix. So we guarantee safety of our patients wherever they are. We coordinate the different areas. We make sure that the resuscitation room is fully staffed, fully stocked and running as it should be, expecting any traumas or fatalities that are coming through the door. And then we also triage. We've got 2 new roles, which is a streaming role that's sat with the reception staff and the YAS streaming role. So we're working closely with Yorkshire Ambulance Services when they're fetching patients into the department. And we have the managerial side as well. So we're managing staff.
Wow, that sounds really busy then. So, and do you get to do nursing as well within all of that, or is it more a leadership management role?
It is more of a leadership, and we don't do as much nursing as what we'd like, but we still have our hands in there as well.
And so, tell me, triage. Whereabouts is that in the A&E process? What's the role of the triage nurse?
So when a patient comes into A&E, they will first book in at reception, and then they will be allocated to triage if they're unwell. The triage nurse will do a brief assessment and decide what needs to happen for that patient. So do they need any further investigations at that point? Can they be diverted to another area? Minor injuries? GP Collab, we've also got the eye clinic, sexual health, other places like that. Or do they need to stay within our department, having any blood tests, x-rays or things? That's what the triage nurse will determine.
And so you prioritising at that stage, is that part of it? If you see someone who's really unwell, would you expedite them and get them through? Is it some of that role as well?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Gosh,
so
that's...
as part of that, they escalate anything that needs to be sorted quite quickly.
And then you mentioned the streaming nurse and the streaming nurse with the ambulance service. How are they different?
So streaming nurse, when you walk into reception, there is one base there from 7 till 7:30 in the evening, and we can divert you to the other services that I've just discussed. Working with the Yaz ambulance service, people come into A&E via an ambulance. I think it's the general consensus that people think if they come in via an ambulance that they're going to get seen quickly. That is not always the case. We're doing exactly the same. We're assessing and we're redirecting to services that they need to be. So we are guaranteeing that people are seen where they need to be seen and as soon as they need to be.
That's brilliant. I appreciated that then. So you're saying patients may arrive in A&E, they may arrive on foot, by car, by ambulance, but regardless of that, you still see them all the same, prioritise them all the same, and then you are signposting away from A&E and into other departments and other services.
Is that what needs to be done for the patient? Right. Yes. So we're making sure they're getting the right service at the right time.
Gosh, and how long have you been a sister for in A&E?
Band 7 I've been 2.5 years. Before that I worked on E-floor as a Band 7, and before that I was a Band 6 in A&E. So I've dipped in and out and come back to what I love.
And do you really enjoy working in A&E?
Absolutely.
And what is it in particular you like about A&E?
I think it's the busy environment. No 2 days are the same, and just being able to support everybody and just seeing the wide range of different ailments that come through the door.
And Amanda, you were talking there about your role as triage nurse and streaming sister and senior sister in A&E, managing the kind of different flows in of patients, keeping them safe. And you mentioned there about patients arriving by ambulance. There's lots in the news about waiting times for ambulances out in the community when people phone 999 and waiting to transfer into A&E. What's it like here at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, that process and that wait time?
Yes, since we introduced the YAS streaming sister, that was because the wait times could be excessive in the community, and we understand that everybody needs to be seen and treated in a timely manner. So the YAS streaming sister came into effect, prompted by the ambulance services to guarantee people in the community are well looked after. Ambulances are getting to individuals who really need them in a timely manner. It's worked really, really well in our department and across the trust. So we can signpost to other services and treat the necessary ones who really need to be treated quickly and efficiently.
And so if a patient, on average, if they were waiting to come from an ambulance into A&E, how long would they be waiting for?
We've reduced the time significantly, so on average it's about 15 minutes we can get an ambulance in through the doors and handover taken.
And you were saying off air, you've been involved in some of that work to kind of improve that time. Tell us a bit about exactly what you've done and how you've engaged your team and the wider organisation to improve that time, because it's brilliant, it's fantastic what you've done.
It is. So the Band 17, we've worked really closely with the Yorkshire Ambulance Service to see what we need to do, how we can bring in the patients even when we're full. What do we need to do? surge areas, signposting patients to different areas who don't need to be on a trolley or in A&E itself, so signposting them to different services. We have looked at bringing extra seating areas in, things like that, to make sure that everybody is where they need to be.
And that must then involve a lot of work with the ambulance service. You kind of touched on that. So you work in A&E, but do you work closely with paramedics and ambulance teams? Is that how it works?
We do, and we have regular meetings with them. So we have a really good working relationship with all of the ambulance services. And they come in, we have a team leader that we can liaise with. They give us a general feeling of what the day is going to look like in the community, so we can act really quickly and make sure that we've got free space for people that's coming in.
And that much must make such a difference for patients if they know they're getting to A&E, they're going to get into the A&E department within quarter of an hour on average to, I presume, then get the care, the input from you and nursing and medical colleagues. What's the feedback from patients been?
So I think majority, it's been a positive feedback. Yeah. You will always get some that feel that they need a higher priority than what you've put them at, but we reassure them and just, let them know that safety is at the forefront of our minds for everybody, and that we will get to them in that priority list.
And as well as making a difference for that patient that's coming in quicker, I presume that must make a real difference, and I think you touched on it earlier, for patients out in the community, because I presume if you've not got ambulance crews waiting for you, that means they're turned around, back on the road, ready for the next patient, does it?
Yes, they're out there dealing with the next 999 calls and making sure that there's no delays in crews getting to them really unwell patients at home.
Amanda, you were telling us earlier, obviously your role is senior sister, but you work with a multidisciplinary team, lots of other different roles in A&E. So tell us about some of your colleagues, what are their roles and what are the jobs that they do that then provides that fantastic care for our patients?
So we have a Band 6 team as well. They are sisters in A&E. They provide another leadership for the full team in A&E. They can take charge of the department. We've got staff nurses. Staff nurses are doing triaging. They're assessing patients, providing treatments, all the organisation for each patient and their journey through A&E. We have got support workers who work closely with our nurses, Band 6s and Band 7s, who can take bloods, insert cannulas, complete ECGs, observations. So we all work together really closely. We've got there's doctors team that can range from resident doctors all the way up to registrars and consultants. I think A&E is quite special that because we spend so much time together and work really closely, all of us work well as a team and have really good working relationships. We have the FDRT, so the discharge service that come into A&E. So your older generation that just may need a little bit of help or assessment before they get discharged from A&E, the FDRT service comes in and completes that. We've got radiology completing all of the x-rays that they need, CT scanners. We have people coming in from all different departments into A&E to make sure we've covered every basis for each patient individually.
And early on you mentioned then obviously the streaming and triage nurse, I think you said, work alongside the admin and clerical, so I presume it's the receptionists that on the whole the patients will see first?
Receptionists play a vital role. Right. They are the first protocol for all patients, and they are there to answer a lot of questions for all the patients that are in the waiting area waiting to be seen. Different questions from what's the doctor wait to where's the nearest coffee shop, toileting facilities and where they can get food. So yeah, receptionists do a great job.
And then I presume, obviously, a proportion of your patients hopefully will be turned around and discharged back out into the community. But I imagine each day then, you touched on the kind of the different doctors that come down. So you'll admit patients to the wards. So how do patients get to the wards when they've been in A&E? who in the team takes them out to the wards, and what groups of teams and staff have you got there?
So we've got a fabulous porter service. So we have a minimum of 4 porters on each shift, and they will transport patients wherever they need to go. So whether it's to an admissions unit or to X-ray, CT scanners, the porters are there to assist with that. They're a fabulous service.
I imagine. And then you see a lot in the press about violence and aggression in A&E. Do you have dedicated security staff? Do you have support from the police? How does that go within your team?
We do. Unfortunately, we do have violence and aggression in A&E, and that can be for a wide scope of reasons. We have in-house security, so they would be our first protocol for anybody that's proving to be a little bit difficult in our department. Other than that, if it escalates further, then we have police service, and we work really well and closely with police, and we have somebody, Tracy, that works specifically with the A&E team to make sure that we're getting out of the police service what we need to.
Fantastic, brilliant. So it does, and you mentioned earlier, it sounds, and you can imagine it, can't you, kind of just the care, the types of patients, the instance that you get involved with, that sounds like it must be a really close team. That must be what ensures we've got the right care for patients, all those different skills, all those different backgrounds. How close a team is it?
It's very close. I always say it's a special working relationship in A&E. A lot of us see our work colleagues more than what we do see our families and our husbands. So it's good to have a great working relationship, and it makes every shift so much easier knowing that you can get through and have a bit of banter along the way. Yeah,
no, it's absolutely amazing. And being in the city and knowing we've got such a fantastic department that is there, is responsive, is there at our absolute times of needs, it's fantastic. Amanda, just give us a bit of an insight, because you were saying you didn't qualify as a nurse until relatively recently. You've not done nursing all your career, so we'll get into some of the detail afterwards, but give us a bit of a hint at what you did before nursing.
I was a fork truck driver before my nursing days.
So I'm really keen to kind of hear how you went from the transition of that to nursing. So join us after the news. Really keen to hear some more from Amanda about her role in A&E and some of her career that's taken her from forklift truck driving to A&E nursing. But we've had a request from Paul, so our volunteers have been out and about again, collecting requests from patients on the ward. This is Paul, who's a patient at the Northern General, and he's asked for some Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven to take us up to the news.
Playing all your favorites, 24 hours a day, Sheffield Hospital Radio.
So Amanda, you were telling us earlier you're an A&E sister now, but a couple of different nursing roles before that. So talk us through, so you're a sister on AMU, so which part of the organisation is that?
AMU is a acute admissions unit, so it's the admissions ward that you'll go to when you leave ED before you go to a base ward.
And I presume then the number of admissions that must come through from the numbers you were saying earlier, that must be a really big ward, is it?
It is a big ward. It's around 56 bedded unit. Yeah, it's got a really large, wonderful team that manage that ward.
And so being a sister on AMU compared to being a sister on A&E, where was it different? Where's it similar?
It was a band 5 that I was on AMU. So
right.
That similar in a way that it's still an extremely busy shift. There's always something happening, but different in you get to interact with your patients more. You've got your patients with you for a longer period of time. So you're able to build more of a rapport with your patients. You have an 8-bedded bay in AMU as a nurse, and you look after them 8 patients for their journey while they're with you, and that's providing all treatments to the patient and making sure that they're safe.
And I imagine with the numbers that you were saying coming through A&E and the number of admissions every day, is the acute assessment unit, is that admissions unit, is that different to a normal ward? I imagine the turnover, it's probably turning over 1 or 2 times a day, is it? You've got different patients coming through on your shift?
Absolutely. 1 or 2 times is probably a minimum,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a very fast-paced, but it's good in a sense that the flow is really good out onto the base wards. And if patients are that unwell that they need to be admitted onto a base ward under a speciality, AMU is that stepping stone to get there, but knowing that the patient will be in the correct area once they're on that base ward.
And that sounds like it links to, you mentioned as well, you'd done a year in patient flow. So is that what that role was all about?
It was, yeah. It's allocating beds to patients that need them, and that's across all of the admissions wards. So AMU, the frailty unit and surgical assessment centre, making sure that they've got flow for all the patients coming in from A&E into the wider trust. So yeah, it opened my eyes to what happens in the wider trust, because patient flow also covers the theatres and HDU, ITU as well, all the cardiology services. So it does give you a general feel to everything at STH at the Northern.
And you talked earlier about the kind of the different routes into A&E, and we touched on the different routes out of A&E. I presume across an organisation the size of STH, the routes into all those different specialties, be it elective, emergency, from the district generals, from theatre. So your role was finding a bed for all of those patients and getting them into the right bed?
Absolutely.
Gosh.
Yeah, making sure that they are in a bed when they need to be and being treated as soon as.
And so what took you from those roles into A&E? Had you done that before? Is it somewhere you'd always wanted to be?
So I always knew I wasn't never a base ward nurse. I always liked a more faster pace with a higher turnover. Patient flow was just for experience for me, to learn about the whole trust. And when I was leaving there, choosing my next step, I just thought, what do I need to do now that will benefit me and my career? So A&E was the obvious choice to make sure I covered all of the emergency services. So all of my experience is within emergency services at the Northern.
Okay. And have you been a nurse elsewhere, or have you always been a nurse at STH?
I started my career at Jimmy's Hospital at Leeds, St James. Nursing jobs was very minimum when I qualified many years ago, but that was another really good hospital, and I started on a geriatric ward, which stood me in good stead for all the fundamental basics that nurses really need when starting a career. Thoroughly enjoyed the team there and stayed there for about 3 years before I moved over to the STH. And the movement was only made because I'd got young children at the time, and I needed something more close to home.
Gosh. And so tell me about working at STH. What's great about it?
STH has just got such family orientated environment. So like I said earlier, you are working with colleagues and you're seeing them probably more so than you do some family members. So building really good working relationships, and we've got such great services covering everything that the general population and community of Sheffield need, and you interact with all of them. So you will, throughout your weeks and months, you will interact with majority of the services, not so much the community because that's usually electronic version, but yeah, face to face, you get to see a wide scope of people and you learn each other's roles and respect everybody that they do, what they're doing along the way.
And do you think, you mentioned kind of you've always worked in emergency services, do you think you'll do something else beyond A&E, or is it A&E for you for the rest of your career? I'm putting you on the spot now.
I know, and I've not thought that far. I'm just enjoying what I've got at the moment, and not really thought further afield as yet.
Brilliant. Amanda, do you have volunteers in A&E?
Very, very rarely.
Right.
Very rarely.
I imagine, given the nature of the environment, it's pretty busy.
Yes, it is, yes.
But there are volunteers across the rest of the organisation, so do please get in touch. Check out the website, www.sth.nhs.uk, and look up being a volunteer. You join me, Michael, on my Saturday soundtrack on Sheffield Hospital Radio, and I've got Amanda, one of the senior sisters in our A&E department. We've heard, Amanda, about your different nursing career, but you gave us a taster before the news that before nursing you were a forklift truck driver.
I was. For about 10 years I was a forklift truck driver with about 4 licences.
So when you say with 4 licences, what does that mean? Does that mean there's different types of forklift trucks?
There's lots of different
Can you tell
trucks.
I'm well out of my comfort zone of knowledge here? So
I mean,
tell us about forklift truck driving.
It's a long time ago, so yeah, there's lots of different fork trucks, and I had 4 different licences, to those that the smaller ones that just carry pallets across, and the ones that literally take you up about 17 metres in the air, which is ironic considering I'm scared of heights.
Really? So the actual truck goes up in the air?
The actual truck goes
Wow.
up in the air, yes.
Gosh. And so what, if you don't mind me asking, what got you into forklift truck driving?
Just stumbled into it, I think. So I'd always worked at the warehouse, the distribution centre, but just as a picker, never ever. It was just a stopping gap in between college, and then really enjoyed it. Saw opportunity to take some licences, and thought, well, why not? It's the better hours to suit me, and it was good pay at that point. So yeah, just went for it.
And the different guests that I've had on the show over this past year, I am genuinely fascinated, and it's wonderful to hear the different backgrounds and those kind of career journeys, because often we assume people have gone straight from school to college to university to their career. So we had Richard on last week. He talked about his change from being a radiographer out into teaching and then back into the hospital. So to go from forklift truck driving, and I imagine, and I hope you don't mind me asking, I presume being a female in that profession was quite unusual.
It was. I was one of the first females to get some of the licences in the UK. But yeah, there's lots of females doing that job now.
Yeah.
And it was supported within that distribution centre and encouraged for female staff to take on them roles.
Right. And so what took you then from being a forklift truck driver into nursing? How did that happen?
Well, I'd got young children at the time and just thought, I've come to a point in my life where I need to do what I want to do and set a career for myself, and lead my children. So that's what I did. Said goodbye to the fork truck and went on to do an access course and then started university.
And do you miss it at all? Is it something you might go back to in your later years?
Definitely not.
No.
I do miss it, and you miss the people that you work with. I think that's the main thing. But yeah, no, don't want to go back. Still scared of heights.
And it probably sounds like a random daft question, but is there anything from that part of your career that you take into your A&E role now that's different, that you build on?
I think it's your resilience,
Right.
life skills. So yeah, I know today a lot of people, they know what they want to do when they're younger and they go straight into university when they've got their qualifications. I took an alternative route. I built my family first, got my life experience, and I think that also was, stood me in good stead for my career.
Absolutely. And how about, because I imagine in A&E, with it being a 24-hour service, you said you'd been on nights this week. So how's it working shifts? How do you find that with the old body clock and turning it around and fitting that around? Does that fit well with family life? Does it help? Does it hinder?
It does hinder. I am the one family member that is not always able to turn up to affairs and go to different parties that you've been invited to, but it's part and parcel of becoming a nurse, and you're well aware of that before you do take your training. I think that was probably one of the decisions why I didn't do my nursing in my younger years,
Right.
because I wanted to be out there and living a young life. So yeah, It's getting the sleep pattern back. I think after nights, the key is to have a minimal sleep on that first day so you can go to bed as normal that evening.
And you find that fine now, do you, that kind of turn around, your body's just in that routine of how frequently do you do nights on your shift?
It can differ, so, and I can have days and nights in a week, so it does differ. We usually do, in a month, 2 weeks of nights and 2 weeks of days.
Gosh, okay. And do you do, because we hear a lot about nursing teams and lots of different professions doing long shifts, long days. Is that how yours work? Do you get plenty of days off in the week, or is it just kind of a couple of days like a Monday to Friday job?
So your typical week is 3 12.5-hour shifts in that week. So you'll do 3 weeks, 3 shifts, and then on your last one you'll do 3.5 shifts just to make up your hours to your contracted. So yeah, I think a lot of people prefer to do the longer days than a shorter day because they get more good quality time off with their families.
Yeah, and I presume that with kind of what you're saying about obviously the 24-hour nature of the shift pattern must absolutely have an impact on, particularly if the rest of your family is the kind of all daytime hours. But if you get those fairly long stretches of days off in between, then do you?
Yeah, you just have to be strategic in your shift requests. Yeah. That's all.
Absolutely. Fantastic. No, well, as I say, genuinely, I'm always fascinated to hear about how staff across STH got into the careers that they do now. So yeah, really fascinating. Thanks, Amanda. And this next song, I think, is one that members of the A&E team have asked you to play. Red light spells danger. Does that represent them well?
Absolutely.
They clearly go run into the danger in terms of helping out our patients and doing some wonderful stuff. So yeah, here's to all the A&E staff. Thanks for absolutely everything that you do. Billy Ocean. And we all know that start, red light spells danger. So Amanda, you were telling us right at the beginning around the types of patients and the different ways of patients coming into A&E, but then also the streaming that you do and pointing to other services. But we often see a lot in the news about Choose Well, particularly over winter, and obviously I presume A&E is part of a wider urgent and emergency care system. So what would your thoughts be? How can we help patients to make sure they get to the right service when they need it?
Yeah, that's right. So A&E, for some people, is their first port of call, but it doesn't need to be. None of us like waiting long periods of time in A&E, so everybody can assist with that. And that's looking at the walk-in centre. So Sheffield have got walk-in centres, pharmacy. All pharmacies are able to see, people with minor ailments and give them advisories on what they need to do, where they need to go, if anything, and what they need to take. Their own GPs, they're really, really good at getting on-day appointments as well, GPs. I know if it's something more routine and regular, it may take a little bit of time, but a lot of GPs now you can get straight in. And also 111 service. Give them a ring, they can get you an appointment with a GP, an emergency GP if needed to. They're all things that we can do to prevent everybody coming into A&E, and it helps us focus on the people that really need it and cut our wait times down.
That's fantastic. And so I presume services like 111, they're 24 hours?
They are 24 hours.
And the walk-in centre you refer to, that's the one on Broad Lane, just going into town. And then you said you've got minor injuries units. That's kind of almost that's a minor injuries unit at the Royal Hallamshire. That's an outpost from your main department, is it?
It is, and that's open 8 till 8.
And what types of patients or injuries would go there?
So literally what it says on the tin, a minor injury. So anything from falls and you've hurt your knee, cuts, bumps, anything to do with your bones. So you fall and you've hurt your wrists and it's swollen. Anything like that can all go to minor injuries. If you come to the Hallamshire with any of those symptoms, we have got minor injuries as well that we can direct you to.
Brilliant. And I presume, because one worry will be for patients, how do they get to the right place? And almost because A&E feels like the kind of almost top of the tree. Patients may choose to go there first, but it sounds like from what you're saying within A&E about diverting out and signposting patients out, I presume if patients get into their GP or phone 111 or get to the minor injuries or walk-in centre, would those areas do the same if they felt that the patient needed accident and emergency? They would signpost, organise for the patient to get into your care?
Absolutely, and they'll send you with a letter just to give us a brief outline of what they've discussed, the GP's assessment, and why they're sending them to us, so we can prioritise as needed.
And one of the themes that's come through that you've explained really well, Amanda, is that prioritisation. So am I right? It sounds like what you're describing, you don't see patients necessarily in the absolute strict order that they arrive in A&E, or you don't see patients, all the ambulance patients before those that walk in. It sounds like there's quite a clinically based triage priority, and so I know that's one of the things we often hear from A&E. Patients are there and see other people go ahead of them, but I presume that's all based on clinical need and clinical priority. So that how we manage and support the expectation of patients about waiting times.
Absolutely. The sickest will get treated first. And especially if we have traumas or any really unwell patients took into resus, they do take staff away from their areas because we have to look after the sickest first. Unfortunately, that does impact the rest of the department. But if we're all making, a conscious choice to look for the correct service first off, we're all helping each other.
Absolutely. And I presume if you're sat in the waiting room, you won't know quite rightly that a patient's come in and gone straight into the resus. That sounds like the highest kind of clinical priority, is it?
Yeah. People sat in the waiting room, sometimes the waiting room can be half empty and people think that it's, a really lovely day and it's not very busy in A&E. On them days, it's usually quite chaotic around the back, and they don't get to see that. They don't see the multiple ambulances fetching lots of patient in and the traumas and the heart attacks that's happened in the department. So all staff work really, really hard to make sure everybody gets seen in the less time as possible.
Brilliant. And that seems to take us kind of full circle back to your role then, and you described it right at the beginning as the senior sister, that coordination of all of that prioritisation. Those, did you say, was it about 350, 380 patients going through? It sounds like the department would have, between 80 and 100, 120 patients in at any time?
Yeah, it can be. So you probably start off in a morning with about 60, 80 patients, and that soon builds up into about 160 by the early evening.
That's fantastic. That amount of care that you're providing there is absolutely fantastic. So, that pretty much is all we've got time for. Thank you all for listening in, and a massive thank you to Amanda. I really appreciate you coming in at the end of a long week of nights to come and tell us all about your role in A&E and your role as a sister. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Definitely have. Thank you for the invitation.
No, thank you, and a massive thank you from all our listeners to everything. It's been great to hear about the role, of A&E and the pathways around urgent and emergency care. But yeah, massive thank you to all that you and your team do for us. Who knows if and when any of us might need A&E, so having it there, having you as a fantastic team to rely on when we do turn up is absolutely fantastic. So when you go back, please do say a massive thank you to all of them, and don't forget to tell them to tune all the radios in the waiting rooms and things into Sheffield Hospital Radio.
Absolutely.